Your Excellency, our dear Father John Michael Brehl. This is how it sounds. Thank you for having accepted this interview, because it's going to be a source of great joy for many. In these last days, you have just crossed the entrance of the old Marilana 31 Street, which used to be your home when you served the congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer as the Superior General here in Rome from 2009 till 2022. Our first question will be this one. What were your feelings when you saw the plays, when you saw again the shrine, the icon, or met the confers? Perhaps you've seen your office?
Well, I've not seen my office, and I have not yet gone to the icon. I will do that after we finish the interview, and certainly before I leave tomorrow. But for me, just to come in to the house felt like coming home. And to be welcomed by the confreres at Pranzo was a joy. To see so many that I know, because they were here with me for some of my time, some for all of my time here, but also then to see the new students who have come from different parts of the world, many of whom I have met in their home provinces. So it is like a coming home to the congregation and to the community, which I really, really appreciated. Yeah.
And there should be many other things to be touched about that, of course, because you must have left many things here. And when you get back and you see them, they touch your heart, definitely.
Yes.
But there will be another question anyway, because you have ministered the whole congregation from this place for 13 years as our Superior General. And things were changing rapidly during the two sexennia with the general chapters involved. I'm sure your soul, your mind, and heart continue to resonate the Copiosa Redemptio message you had captured in those years.
Yes.
Could you highlight just one most important point that continues to resound in your heart as a message to all our confreres who will actually join us in this conversation by the global media?
I would say that serving the congregation in this capacity as Superior General was probably the most meaningful experience of my life so far. And what constantly resonates in my heart that I learned in those years is what it really means, as we see in Constitution 2, to form one missionary body. We form one missionary body over all the earth. Father Lasso taught me about this when he was Superior General, in much of what he wrote and getting to know him as he came to visit us and as he worked so diligently to foster that spirit that we are one. Father Tobin really began in concrete manners the restructuring process, at the heart of which is a recognition that we are one missionary body, that we belong to this body, and that the way in which we belong to our particular provinces is very important, but it is secondary to our primary identity as a missionary body, the body of Christ the Redeemer in the world today. And when the chapter in 2009 gave that mandate to the new general government, and I received it, it was not what I expected, but it was certainly what God intended for us, and we can see the fruit. And so I follow every week in Scala News the details about where new provinces are taking first steps, where we are beginning to sense even more concretely the fruit of the Spirit in this whole process, which is a process of conversion more than a process of structures. The name's not a good name, but it's a process of conversion, forming us more and more into that one missionary body of Jesus, who is still present among us, who is still calling us to be witnesses, to, with the Holy Father choosing for his theme for the Jubilee this year, the same theme we have, to be missionaries of hope, to be pilgrims of hope in the footsteps of our Redeemer, but to embody in our very being, that hope that the Copios Redemptio brings, that resonates more with me. I cannot help, even coming to this house, but feel the universality and the connection that we share in this congregation with Redemptorists all over the world. That all of us are part of this one family. That it's really been the grace of these years to know what that means. Father Tobin used to always say that being Superior General helped him fall in love with the congregation. I would phrase it this way, that he certainly helped me to fall in love by his leadership with the whole congregation. But in these years, I've learned what it means to be in love. Both the pains and crosses we bear, because love always requires sacrifice and death to self for the other, but the joys and the hope and the possibilities that it brings and that it opens for us. So that to be one missionary body, to form a missionary body, all of us together, with our lay partners, with our sisters, with all the priests and brothers as one community, and to call young men as students, as novices, as aspirants, as junior professed, to deepen that sense of identity, I think is really a joy.
So one spirit, one body, one love. That's what you've said.
Absolutely.
Powerful message. And that's the Gospel of John, chapter 17, to sustain us even from the Revelation. You are here because you have been appointed and subsequently ordained on August 15 this year as the 10th Bishop of the Diocese of Pembroke in Canada. With 4 other conferers bishops, you participated this week in a special course organized by the Holy See for the new shepherds and leaders like you of the diocese. Your diocese, with a population of over 60,000, if I'm not mistaken, 60,000 Catholics in 55 parishes and missions, is served by 65 diocesan religious priests, 12 permanent deacons, together with 1 consecrated man and 60 consecrated women. St. Alphonsus, like you, became bishop himself, so you have an excellent mirror to look at. What would you say, here's the question, what would you say St. Alphonsus is whispering to your heart today in our context?
I talk a lot with St. Alphonsus. I don't always hear the answer. Certainly I don't have visions of St. Alphonsus, but I talk a lot with him and am inspired by him. I didn't want to be a bishop. And the first thing that I felt Alphonsus saying to me was what he said. The Holy Father wills it, therefore God wills it, therefore I will it. And I've really prayed to do the same as him. That the Holy Father called me, appointed me, then that means that God has called me. And I've experienced that in many ways. And so I will it. I want to do this work. I want to give myself. In that spirit, and it is the spirit of Alphonsus, it means that I have to pour myself out into this ministry for the service of others. That this is now what it means for me to be a Redemptorist missionary. I was feeling a great grief about leaving the Redemptorist community. I've not left the congregation, and I've not left the community which is bigger than just those with whom I live. But it was hard to let go and leave. But I realized this is what God is calling me to do as a Redemptorist. And as a Redemptorist, then I go to the Diocese of Pembroke, where there are no Redemptorists, no Redemptorist community, and I am called to be that witness to hope, to mercy, to God's plentiful redemption. This was confirmed for me because the first time I set foot in Pembroke, which I had never visited before, I had never been in the city, when I went to meet with the priests a week after the announcement was made, I drove to the place where I was staying, which was in a parish rectory, Our Lady of Lourdes, and before going to the rectory and ringing the bell, I said, I will go into the church and make a visit. And I walked into the church, and there on the front wall, who was there to greet me and welcome me but our Mother of Perpetual Help? And every place I have gone, she's there. Now, I'm a romantic, I know, but I am sure that this is God assuring me again that through the gift which has been made to our congregation of the icon of our Mother Perpetual Help, and through our congregation to the whole church, that God is assuring me that she is walking with me whatever I do. And I don't think that we can witness to her Son without her standing by our side. So I think this has all been part of what it means, but it means I go to Pembroke as a Redemptorist missionary. It means that I continue to live out my vocation in this new context, and that because I will it and say yes, God then will care for the rest.
With the perpetual help of our Mother.
With the perpetual help of our Mother.
Thank you for these answers. There's a couple of more questions, if you don't mind. This special meeting in Rome allowed you to meet more than 160 bishops, if I'm not mistaken, starting their ministry like you. What would you say is the core matter of the Church that we all should seriously embody in our lives, especially keeping in mind the final stage of the Synod 2024 and, as you mentioned, the upcoming Holy Year of 2025?
Just a minor addition, correction. There were 160 new bishops in the place where I was staying, sponsored by the Dicastery for Bishops and Oriental Churches. But the heart of our week, we spent 2 days together at the Urbanianum with another 120 who are directly under the Dicastery for Evangelization of Peoples. So there was a total group, I think, of close to 280 new bishops who have been named either ordinaries or auxiliaries across the world, and the whole church was represented. I think every country virtually had somebody there. It was extraordinary to meet so many from Russia, from Ukraine, from there wasn't anyone I met from China, no, but from all over Latin America, Europe, North America, Asia. So extraordinary. In that context, one of the themes that kept coming back from the different prefects of congregations who spoke to us and from the other invited speakers was echoing the call of Pope Francis to grow in unity, which doesn't mean uniformity, but unity as we enter more deeply into this change of epoch that the whole world is going through and face crises like the wars and the crisis of climate and poverty and growing gaps between rich and poor, that we are called to face these together as one body, Christ's body, present on earth. We're not all called to be the same. Uniformity, no. We're not all called to think exactly the same. We are called to communion and to a deeper unity, which, while respecting our differences and listening to those who don't agree with us, we still understand that all of us have been called and that God has something to reveal and to share with this world through each one of us who are bishops and through the people we are sent to serve. And that this is really very much in conformity or in communion with the synodal process that Pope Francis is leading us to deepen. That we walk together. That we walk together. The bishops, the clergy, the laity, the religious men and women, and people of goodwill who are not yet part of this body we call the Catholic Church. Other churches who believe in Christ, who are part of the church, but also those of goodwill and faith, and those who have no faith, explicit. And that this call to communion, which transcends the polarization and differences that can divide us, is much, much deeper than what separates us. I found that very powerful. And I was inspired by the bishops I met from all parts of the world, and hearing some of their stories and what they are experiencing. The bishops from the Middle East who want to be with their people. And when they talk about being with their people, they're not saying, I want to be with those who come to my church. My people are suffering. The Syrian people are suffering. I want to be with them. The Lebanese people are suffering. And that this, again, they are living a witness which transcends so many of the differences that we sometimes think are so important. And I use those examples, but there are so many others. It was truly inspiring. And then we had the chance to meet with the Holy Father on Thursday, to speak with him personally, to ask questions, to offer observations and invite him to comment, and to listen as he spoke from his heart to ours. Again, calling us more deeply into that communion. That's an extraordinary experience. It's going to take me, it was so intense, it'll take me the next couple of weeks at least to begin to unpack what it means. But we do that in prayer, and we do that in talking about it. This helps me even to articulate what we lived through this week.
As you've seen, I didn't interrupt you because that was such a mighty wave of very important messages, not just one message. Communion will be the common denominator for Synod and the coming Jubilee year, which is so powerful because it includes everybody without absolutely excluding. So this inclusive communion is probably something that will also involve our own prayer and desires. One more final question, if you don't...
Not at all.
Okay. Of course, there would be many more questions to be asked. Yet, you must leave Rome now to get back to your diocese, and you are called to be a father, a brother, a son to those more than 60,000 Catholics in those parishes and missions, making yourself everything to everybody, as St. Paul would say. And this is what he said to the Corinthians. This special community of Pembroke has its own identity, has its own mission, as well as its challenges. Our question would be, what is the most cherishing element you found in this diocese, uplifting your heart? And on the other side, what would you recommend to us that we should keep in prayer as the challenge when we are thinking of all of you there in Canada, in Ontario, in Pembroke?
One of the first things that struck me when I arrived and spoke with the priests of the diocese was the strong spirit of fraternity and support they have for one another. They really care about each other. They're very different ages. You say 65 priests, that's true. They're different ages. The oldest priest is 90, and we have a new one who was ordained on June 29th who is 26. They come from different generations, from different worlds. But there is a fraternity, a care for one another that was evident from the first moment when I met them. I think that was quite extraordinary. And they came to meet me. I mean, that was because the diocese is big and spread out. I found that same spirit echoed in the various parishes I visited. In the months since I was ordained, I've been able to celebrate, I think, in 7 parishes with people, and I've been impressed. Each has its own identity. We have many different styles of community depending on the ethnic background which has made up that community. We're a nation of immigrants, and as well depending on sometimes where they've been, rural or small town. There are no big cities in the diocese. It's rural and small town. But that's been quite striking. The religious women, there are 2 congregations founded in Pembroke which have sent missionaries around the world and which are now really preparing for their last stages because they do not have vocations. But they continue to be involved in and pray daily for and witness to their love for the Diocese of Pembroke and the various places where they've worked. The furthest afield they went is to China many, many years ago. It's quite extraordinary, the generosity of these women. So all of that together, there's a feeling among the people, there's a sense that we are being called to something more and that we want to engage in it and be part of it. What are some of the challenges facing us? The lack of young vocations entering. We are facing a shortage of priests, of sisters, of people who are prepared for leadership in the church. We are facing some financial crises in many parishes as some of the very strong in the past rural communities have seen all the young people move to cities and seek work elsewhere, and yet the costs of some of the big structures are still there. And so we're facing a lot of those challenges. Much more deeply than that, we're facing challenges of poverty. It's a diocese in which there is a great deal of hidden poverty. The lowest median income of any particular area in the province of Ontario. People struggling to make ends meet. The drug crisis and opioid crisis that is right across Canada is really affecting this diocese too. And what is striking is the way in which there's a collaboration on the part of people across lines, faith lines, ethnic lines, wherever people come from, language, to help and reach out to one another. But those are things that we really have to look at going into the future. I think that what Cardinal Hummus said to Pope Francis at the conclave which elected him, stay close to the poor. I heard that very clearly from Pope Francis to all of us bishops, stay close to the poor, stay close to those who are suffering. It would be hard not to be aware in most dioceses. And so I'm learning that particular face in the Diocese of Pembroke as well.
So thank you, because it also cherishes our own heart, that fraternity that you have discovered, but also that hidden poverty that actually opens our hearts to pray for you with eagerness and hoping that new life will actually flourish from where you will go and touch and see and talk to those people that have been given to your pastoral care. Thank you so much, Father Michael. You know that this is and will always remain your home. We enjoy the expectation of other similar moments when you cross the Merulana 31 door again and again, and please God, there will be other occasions for sharing our Redemptorist mission and life. Thank you, dear Father Michael, for this precious time you have offered to us who are spread in the whole world. Have a safe trip back home and see you again, please God.
Thank you very much.